Boom, we're live. Okay, sweet. Small X Talks. This is episode 6. I'm here with Maria.
Hello.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on and doing this. So
My pleasure.
sweet. I want to talk about your book, but I don't want to jump into that
Okay.
right away, if that's okay. I kind of want to talk about, because I know a little bit about your background story, and I know you're from Spain, right? Would you mind kind of telling us a little bit about that and kind of how you ended up coming to the U.S. and your career and all that sort of fun stuff?
Oh, sure.
Sweet.
So you want me to start in Spain?
Yeah, if you could. Yeah, I
Okay.
know. I can't remember if did you say you weren't adopted, right? You came over here with your family.
No. I was born in a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere in Spain. So it's in Galicia, it's the northwest section of Spain, and we were really, really poor. We had nothing at that point. My parents didn't have much of education. I think my mother went to school until fourth grade. My dad did sixth. So I was born to basically two dirt farmers that didn't own anything. We didn't own the house we lived in. We didn't own the land. The only thing my parents owned were 7 cows, a couple of pigs, and a couple of chickens, and that's it. Those were our assets. We had nothing else. So we all had to work. So I found myself working at the age of 4.
Wow.
And my job was to mind the 7 cows. And I needed to basically take them out to the field to pasture, bring them back, and make sure that while they're out, that they're not eating somebody else's crops. Because if I did, it was going to be a bad day for me. It was not going to be a good day. Because back then it was not about discipline by nurturing, and it was definitely physical punishment.
Yeah.
So I learned real fast that these cows needed to be contained. So I did that until the age of 8. At the age of 8, my parents had the opportunity to come to the United States.
So what happened with that? How did they have this opportunity?
Well, it was my grandmother was already in the United States. She was able to bring them over. But
Nice.
at that time, they were nervous about what was in store for them, because they had no skills, and they didn't speak English, and they were coming into a city that it was Newark, New Jersey.
Wow.
That was not at that time, one of the best cities with the best reputation. So they thought best it was to leave me behind in a convent with nuns.
My God.
Yes. And so at the age of 8, I went from living in this countryside in a little farm town to being locked down in a convent. And in that convent, it was not good life. It was not pleasant. It was not in the hands of loving, nurturing nuns that cared for homesick girls. It was these disciplinarians that believed in physical punishment. And there, I even lost my identity. I lost my name. I wasn't Maria anymore. I was number 4.
They numbered you guys?
Yes.
Jesus,
so
that's like prison.
It was.
Wow.
Actually, it was similar, because we had these uniforms that were in stripes, blue and white.
Wow.
It was a little pinstripe, and I had number 4 embroidered on the side.
What the fuck? Oh my God.
So it was number 4 didn't eat her lentils, number 4, caught lice, and number 4 didn't make her bed right. So it was definitely a tough life. And then
So how long were you
I was there over 3 years.
Okay.
And then at the age of 12, I was reunited with my parents in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
And there I went to school. I went,
So did they feel finally like established enough to bring you over? Is that
enough? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I joined them. And at that point, I came at the age of 12 without a word of English. Went into Newark's public school system, and then I went into I did a Catholic school for high school in an all-girls high school.
Okay.
And then, my life took me into many different ways. Some led to great successes, and others led me to epic failures. On the successes, I ended up climbing the corporate ladder. I, you know, I reinvented my career a number of times, but every reinvention kind of got me a step higher. Ultimately, made it to executive level in corporate America. And so, for the little farm girl, that
Yeah.
came in as an immigrant girl without English, that was, pretty solid achievement.
Yeah.
On the personal side, I didn't do so well. I had two amazing, children. I had a son and a daughter that, are, amazing. But, I ended up in a marriage that was not the great marriage. We limped along for, 23 years.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow. Holy
Yes.
hell.
Because nice Spanish girls don't get divorced. Okay, so that was my,
Man, they might
yeah.
want to change that rule.
Yes,
Damn.
that was a big lesson. It's like all these rules of like, okay,
Yeah.
they need to step out of it.
Well, if I
So,
could just say one
yeah,
thing
go
about
ahead.
the whole marriage thing, I feel like that's an interesting, thing because it's like back in my grandparents' generation, like you were married young and you were expected to stay. Like my grandparents are still together; they've been together for like 50 plus years. But now I feel like, you know, obviously more my parents' generation, a lot of people got divorced, and um, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I mean, don't you think it's better to? I mean, if things aren't working out, like it's healthier to end something.
Absolutely. Just figure it out, and as easy as you can, and
Yeah,
without minimizing the drama as much as you can. But wow, it's a sad way to live.
yeah, definitely.
And so yeah, we limped along. It was not a great marriage, and that finally we had a situation that it was just not. We couldn't repair it anymore.
Mm.
And I asked for a divorce, and he moved out, and 6 weeks later he took his life.
Wow, that's crazy. I remember you saying that for one of the
Yeah.
first times. I mean, that's insane. That's
So I
crazy, crazy.
I found myself, with this middle of this situation, because what happened is that we lived in this very close knit Spanish community, and everybody talked, and I became the gossip, and all the
Wow.
stories, it became like a soap opera.
Yeah.
So I got blamed for my husband's choice,
Wow.
and
That's messed up. That's
tell me
messed
about
up.
it. And the stories were terrible.
Yeah.
It was like, soap opera after soap opera. It was all these things, and I crashed and burned. I crashed and burned really bad.
Really.
It was the stuff like that. It eats at you, and suicide is terrible. It's just
Yeah,
it's
it
one of
is.
those things that the emotions that go into it. It comes with every dark emotion you can think of, because you have, no matter what, you have the what ifs. What could I have done? What could I have done different? There carries shame with it, and then on top of that, when you're blamed for it, then you start saying, did I provoke this? Did I do
Yeah.
this? What did I, what have I done? What about this? What about that?
Oof, man.
And people I loved and people that were very dear to me, they turned their back on me. So I not only had the Spanish community, that I became this bitch that drove her poor husband to his death,
Yeah.
but now I had these people that I really loved, that they were part of my holidays, that broke bread with me in my house. All of a sudden, they're like, yeah.
Looking
So,
down on you or blaming you for. That's crazy. I mean,
and
you
making up
don't. Yeah.
stories
Oh,
that
really?
were
Really?
not true. So I ended up going to, like the funeral home for my husband's viewing. It was like, it was hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up that I didn't even know.
Wow. Holy shit.
And they had very strong opinions about me when they
Yeah.
didn't even know me or what I stood for
Hmm.
or any of it. So it was horrible. It was, really dark,
Wow.
dark periods of my life. But if it doesn't kill you, it will make you
Yeah.
stronger. For sure.
So how long ago was
It
this?
was almost 9 years.
Okay, wow, it's not that long.
Yeah, almost 9
So
years.
you were in New Jersey at the time still?
I was.
And you decided, I gotta get the hell out of here, basically?
Well, it took me a while
Really? Okay.
because I was bent on saying, you know what, you're not going to take me down and you're not going to destroy me. And there's just no way that this is going to be, what's going to define me. It's not. Plus, I had I had a son and a daughter that went through a really, really dark chapter. Because that they were going already through those teenage years that are not cute to begin with, and then you add something that your parent, your father takes his life, and suicide can destroy a family in many ways.
They were in high school at the time?
Yeah, one was starting college, and the other one was finishing up, and and both of them, grief comes in many shades. And the three of us handle grief very differently, very, very differently. And those were bumpy years for them. So I kind of just went in as, all right, how do I get these two where they belong, right back on the right path? And how do I get myself, to a good place too?
Yeah.
And that was a journey. It took me a while.
Yeah, wow. So you did end up eventually deciding you wanted to make a move and go somewhere where you can kind of, start over again. Is that kind of right or no?
Well, there were a number of things that happened, and some of them were pretty interesting.
With the family and friends?
With me.
Oh, okay.
And so I ended up, which is a little bit about the book and the story in the book, is that I had this situation that
health. Right?
Well, in the middle of all that, I also got sick, and I had an issue a health problem that I would all of a sudden I would lose my balance and I would pass out. I was dizzy all the time. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had even 9 doctors working on my case. Nobody could figure it out. And I think all of it was basically, ultimately, the root cause was a lot of stress. Stress with my career, stress with my personal life blowing up, stress because even me, how I handle all of that, the grief, all of it. It was just a bomb inside of me that it was just too much. But one of the things that I didn't share with you is that as a child, I had such a bond with these cows that, we even lived in the same house. That's how poor we were.
That's awesome.
Well, isn't that so awesome? Your house doesn't smell like roses, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So when they live on the first floor and you live above them, and all you have some wooden planks separating you, between the flies and the smell of manure, it ain't cute.
Man. Wow.
And but I had such a bond with them, and I spent a lot of hours with them. And here I was an only child. And there were not other kids in town, so they were my friends.
Yeah.
And like when I would sleep, most of the kids have fear of the dark, or they're always nervous about what's under their bed and what monster lies under your bed. I had none of that because I knew exactly what was under my bed. It was like these cows were there, and every night I would dream that my cows could fly.
Wow.
Yeah, so every night it was like this. We didn't even have a TV until later on. So I guess in that creative mind of mine, my cows could fly, and it was not cow angels. They had no wings. They were not a cartoon. It was them going from cloud to cloud, jumping around, mooing, kicking their heels, and it was this silly dream that every time. I would wake up with a big smile and ready the next day to go and see my cows.
That's awesome.
And then when I went into the nuns, that dream went away. I never dreamed it again. It was forgotten. And then when I was at my darkest, totally at my darkest, and going through this period that I was like, I'm gonna die young. I'm just gonna die young. This is not good. One night, the dream came back.
Really?
It was like the childhood dream that of the flying cows. One night, there it is.
That's crazy.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
How'd you like read that, or what do you think that was
Well,
about?
the like that night, the next morning, I told my son and daughter, like, hey, let me tell you what I dreamt last night. Well, they're like, well, okay, what were you drinking? What were you smoking? What, were there mushrooms involved? Just tell us what was going on with you. And they teased me, and it was a good laugh, and it was all good until the next day, the next night, the dream is back.
Wow.
And then I'm like, okay. And then every night after that, and sometimes 3 times a night. And at that point, it wasn't funny anymore. I was like, all right, this is what crazy looks like. This is like, I cracked, at this point, my mental state is gone. And this is like, I lost it. Like, Maria, you're certifiable. Something's really, really wrong.
Having the same dream over and over again.
And listen, I was 50 years old dreaming about flying cows. It is, like, you're like, okay. Is there
wrong with that?
Yeah, I think so. Unless you're on something, I was like, all right, this is not good. I was so concerned about my mental state that I actually ended up going to the family therapist.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, you need to help me here because something's wrong. And it was very interesting because she was not only a therapist, but she was also a shaman.
Oh, wow.
And
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
And she's looked at things in a different way. So it's not only the typical psychotherapy, it was also about, all right, what is happening with you spiritually?
That's cool.
And I had considered myself atheist for 30 years. Okay. After being with the nuns, the last thing I wanted to do was anything with organized religion. Yeah. I was like, I'm done. I associated religion with spirituality. I didn't even pause to consider the difference. And I didn't want anything to do with it. So now I find myself in this situation, and this woman comes into my life, and she's opening my mind to other stuff. And in the middle of all that, she's like, it's interesting because you're having this dream, and this dream is coming at you every day, and it's relentless. Yet what I notice in this dream is that the cows are flying, but you're not. They're up in the sky having a great time, but you're stuck on the ground looking up, and and with all these other issues that you're having, what's going on? What is it telling you? And at first I kind of resisted because I didn't even want to go there. And there's a pattern in my life that I always resist out of the gate. And I got to a point that I'm like, this is an invitation. This is an invitation that, I need to be in that place of lightness, and that I need to get to that point, and I need to figure out a way to get myself out of this heaviness, and get myself, away from all that stuff that kept me stuck in the muck.
Yeah.
Because I was carrying heavy baggage. That load was not a light load. With all the, between, I had betrayal, I had, abandonment issues, I had grief, I had the shame, I had the guilt, I had stuff that went back to the nuns, stuff that went to my parents, stuff that went, I was like, holy shit. This is like.
I feel like that's most people. Most people walk around and they're just like so beaten down by, their past or whatever. It's like, it's not good.
And what do you do? Like when you have all that stuff, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's fantastic that, okay, I have this dream and these cows are inviting me to, fly high, be in a state of lightness. But when you have all this stuff, what do you do? So that sent me on a quest. And so that's when, during that quest, that my life changed. I ended up, I said, all right, the high achiever in me, big corporate girl, I can do anything. Yeah, okay. Power girl. I was like, all right, I'm going to get myself to that point. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. So I went on this truly a quest to figure it out. How do I get unstuck? How do I free myself from all this crap? How do I let it go? And that took me to, it was an adventure for sure.
Really?
It took me, I read every personal growth book you could think of. And more probably.
Yeah.
I went to every type of healing modality.
Really?
I tackled it. If it's out there, chances are that I did it.
That's awesome.
Some crazy shit.
Really?
Some of it.
Like what? No, like sweat lodge tents, right?
Similar,
Really?
but
Wow.
not
Holy shit.
I ended up in different states. I went to different countries.
Ayahuasca? Have you heard about that?
Yes.
Ayahuasca?
Been there.
Really? No way. Oh, shit.
Been there. Was in
Whoa.
Peru. Yes, in Peru.
We have to talk about that.
Do we?
Yes.
Peru, Indonesia. I did what I was dipped in fountains. I screamed off of mountains.
So you're a big traveler then, right?
Yes,
I mean, it sounds like
I
you've
love
traveled.
traveling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love traveling. I do. I love sacred travel.
Really? Sacred travel?
Yes.
I've never heard that before. That sounds cool though.
Well, what I like about sacred travel is that you go to places and you figure out what is sacred to the people that live there.
Okay, yeah.
And by learning and getting and becoming in contact with what these cultures consider sacred, you learn a lot. So you get sometimes the tourist experience, but a lot of times you get the tourist experience with what makes those people tick.
Wow.
What is their
awesome.
history? How did they get there? What are their belief systems? And you come across pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I love the sacred travel. But yeah, I did in that quest of figuring out how do I get unstuck. I did some very traditional, very orthodox, and very not so orthodox. But it helped. I found really good stuff that helped me out a lot.
So what do you think it is about like other cultures that maybe have like less technology or things like that in their lives? Do you think it's just because they're more connected to like their past and like nature? You think that's why they're more in tune, or what do you think it is?
Well, it depends. I think each culture has something different to offer and to learn from.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, one of my neatest experiences that I went to my trip to Peru. And I did the whole Machu Picchu and everything. And that's why I was saying some stuff it can be touristy.
Yeah.
But other stuff, I ended up in the middle of Lake Titicaca.
I've heard of that before, just because of
Yes.
the name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool name,
Yeah.
isn't it? And I ended up in what they call the floating islands.
Oh, wow.
And these islands are not even Earth. They're actually like, seaweed or reefs
Really?
that kind of grew and created this platform.
Wow.
So I got there and I got to meet, the people that live there.
Wow.
And of course, going in as the corporate girl, the executive, I started thinking about, poor people, it's like, okay, they're really poor. They don't look how they live. They barely have shoes, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I started noticing that they had a spark in their eye.
Yeah.
They were joking with each other. They were having fun. They were laughing. All the women were doing things on the side, and there was like almost like this playfulness about them. And then I realized that I was the one, with a problem here.
Yeah.
It was like, here I have to run away from what I do for a living to reconnect with myself. Meanwhile, these people have it already together. They know what's important in life. They know what, really what matters.
Wow.
And it was, I learned so much from them. I came back with a fresh perspective. And every place I travel, I always, the indigenous people, all of the, groups that are not mainstream. Those are the ones that taught me the most.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Super cool.
it is.
So can we talk about the ayahuasca thing, or do you want to do it? Did you just do it once? You tried it once?
Only once,
Wow.
only once. Yes.
Was it like anything, like, did you have an epiphany or anything like that, or was it just kind of weird and?
So I was with a group, and part of the stuff, it was by choice. If you wanted it to do it or not.
Yeah.
Is basically cactus juice. Like it is terrible.
Like a drink? They make it into a drink?
It is.
Okay.
Yes. So they made it right there in front of us.
Oh.
So it was like, so I was there like this, kind of sipping this thing, and you have to drink it pretty fast. So
Ooh.
not like you could just sit there, have a gulp of water, have another one. No, you have to chug it down.
Wow.
And then things start happening. For me, I didn't have these major epiphanies. The only stuff that I had was that you're out into, like we were in Lake Titicaca. We were in one of the islands, not the floating islands,
That's
actually
crazy.
one of the islands, with this family that it was the locals, and it was cold at night, so you're with alpaca blankets. It was one night that it was harvest moon, so it was this huge moon.
Wow.
And I was with it was probably a group of about 15, and a lot of women in it. And all I had was that the clouds became monsters.
What? Oh my God.
So during the day, it's like like we had done it like in the afternoon. It was something, and it was just, clouds were.
That's terrifying. Holy hell.
I wasn't scared of it. Actually,
Really?
they're funny.
Oh.
I was like, okay, this is not good. This is
Yeah.
not. Okay, what's going on with you, Maria?
Wow.
And it was no big deal. And the rest of the group, I think people had some epiphanies about themselves, about where they were at in life, stuff that was more in the subconscious for them that came up that they needed to deal with. For me, it was no big deal.
Really?
Yeah, it was not.
It's crazy how like that's become so mainstream. I feel like these past couple of years, like there's so many people online talking about ayahuasca and like doing ayahuasca and going to Peru and like, going to these retreats and stuff like that.
You see, one of the things for me is that I would be very careful with it, because you just don't know who you end up with. And if you're going to be in an altered state, you want to make sure that you're in good hands.
Yeah, I heard about some guy this was like maybe a few months ago, who like got killed. He was like, went down to Peru and like took ayahuasca and ended up doing something stupid, and the locals like killed the guy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No. This was like in a controlled environment with, I felt safe. We were all like part of it, and part of the group is very well planned, has a great reputation.
Yeah.
If I didn't feel safe, there's no way. I'm very conservative, so for me it would have been like no, I pass, thank you very much. So anyone that kind of gets caught in that, I would say think twice before you do it, because you could have some reaction to it. So you want to make sure that there's somebody there that is not in an altered state that can take care of you, and that make sure that nothing happens to you.
Yeah, so, that sketches me out. I don't know if I could ever, I don't know. I just get scared about going to like another country, and then like you said, something happens, and you're like, oh my God, what do we do now,
Yeah, and that would be like, I wouldn't just go to another country, and it has to be in a controlled environment with people you trust.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even like psychedelics are coming back more into the conversation now, and I can't remember the specific research that's going on now, but it's going, people are researching back into it and how that could possibly, help with, whatever mental illness, or if you have issues that you need to get over with. So I think all that stuff is super interesting. I've never done, any psychedelics or things like that, but it definitely like
that was the only one, and I'll keep it that way.
yeah, crazy.
Like, oh no.
Wow, cool. So how long ago was it that you decided that you were gonna do this book?
Well, if you had asked me 5 years ago that I was going to write a book, I would have said that, you were high. There was no way.
I might have been. No,
I never wanted to write. I never considered myself a writer. I maybe business writing and doing, business briefs or things like that, or business requirements, that type of stuff, but never a creative concept. And when I kind of cracked the code as to, okay, how do I fix myself? How do I address the stuff that could get me to that place of lightness versus being here stuck in the muck as I was? People started noticing that there was a shift in me, and people that were going through a lot of stuff in their life came to talk to me, or others were sending them saying, hey, not Maria has gone through a lot in her life. You might want to talk to her. So people were coming to me for mentoring, and so when I would tell them about, okay, I hear you, this is what has helped me, these are certain practices that I have made part of my life, this is how I came about that, you might want to go and try it. So I offered just my perspective to them as to what worked for me, and they started noticing big shifts and stuff that they had not been able to address for a long time. All of a sudden, they're finding themselves transforming situations that they didn't deal with before.
Yeah.
And for example, I had a woman that had lost her daughter.
Oh man.
And as a teenager.
Wow.
And she was in a really dark place, and ended up actually being able to transform that grief and that anger into helping families that were living through similar situations.
Oh,
So
cool.
she was able to now take all of that and put it to a good thing. There were other people that had been in toxic relationships that had not been able to shake those situations for decades.
Wow.
And now all of a sudden they were finding the courage to take action. There were others that, their job or their work was just not meaningful. They just felt trapped. All of a sudden they're trying new things. And every time that they would come back, they're like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, yeah,
Awesome.
sure.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I was like, I would always laugh. I would always be like, no, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
And then 3 people totally independent of each other. They didn't know each other at all. Within probably, it was definitely within the same week. I'm thinking probably within 4 days.
Okay.
They told me, you need to write a book.
Wow.
And it was one of that type that they grab you and they say, you need to write a book.
Yeah.
That was what I was like. I'm like, all right, I think there's a message.
That's awesome. Wow.
And since my therapist had been chewing my ear about, okay, there's always signs, listen to signs. I'm like, I think I need to write this book. And I agreed that I would write it, knowing that I had no clue how to write a book.
Yeah.
And,
was that pretty kind of like scary to feel like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to start, like, what was your process as far as like doing it?
I didn't have one.
Really?
I didn't have one.
That might not be a bad thing.
But I'll tell you what happened to me. I went to, once I made the decision that I was going to write the book, I went on a weekend to the Berkshires. And
to where?
The Berkshires is almost like between New York State and Massachusetts.
Okay.
Is this beautiful part. I think it belongs more to Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I went there for the weekend. As the leaves turn, is beautiful.
Really?
It's just
Yeah,
gorgeous
awesome.
there. And I ended up having an experience that I went for breakfast, and then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed what I thought was a bookstore. So I went in, and this woman told me it wasn't a bookstore. It ended up being one of those places that has all the stones and all the crystals and all that.
That's cool.
And I was like, oh, not what
She's kind of
thought.
hippie. Bit of a
Very
hippie shop.
Yes,
That's
very
cool.
much so.
I like that.
And she's like, oh, how can I help you? And I was like, well, I thought it was a bookstore. She's like, I have books in the back. So I go to the
Harry
back.
Potter.
No, it was more about spiritual books and stuff. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "What are you looking for?" So I'm like, "I don't know what I'm looking for. I have no clue what I'm looking for. I just committed to write a book. I have no clue where to begin." And she said, "I have the person for you." I'm like, "You do?" And she gave me a name, and it was such a cool name that I was like, "I'm in.
Really?
I'm in."
What was the
Yeah,
name?
Winslow Elliott.
Ooh,
So I'm
Winslow
like, with a name
Elliott.
like that,
It sounds pretty cool.
pretty much. I was like, I'm in. I don't know her,
Yeah.
but I like her already.
Nice.
Winslow Elliott, it is. So I contacted Winslow, and I got to talk to her. She became my writing coach,
Oh wow.
and every block that was in my head, she helped me peel it away.
Wow.
And she was like, just write, just write, just write. And I remember one time that I was frustrated, and I was just like, Winslow, I feel like I want to have a baby and I can't get pregnant. And
Jesus.
and she's like, oh no, hon, no, no, you're already very pregnant. You're just very big. You just have to give birth. It's all in you. And it was like simple things like that,
Yeah.
that it took it from being, the intellectual that you have to think about, okay, what is my process? What is my outline? How do I
Yeah.
do this? And saying, all right, it's already in me. I know it. I don't have to research it. I don't have to think about it. I just have to let it out. It became so much easier,
Really?
easier after that. It did.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have not finished it because I'm reading
Mm-hmm.
like 3 different books right now. But I love how
You're multitasking
I am.
books.
Yeah,
I do that all the time.
Do you?
I do. It
Yeah.
has to be like some books I'm in the mood for some day is
Yeah.
with this, the other days that. Others
Yeah.
you have to digest them and take them slow.
Definitely.
So yeah, I do that too.
But I love how you. First of all, I just love the concept of the cows. I think that's super cute, and how
Yeah.
you link that obviously with your childhood. But
Yeah.
I like how you, at the beginning of a chapter, you have that when you're talking about walking through like a meadow or something like that to kind of like just calm you down. And I love how you link it with
Yes.
the cows, which is funny and silly, but then you
Yes.
also after that bring in like your real life experience. It's super cool.
Well, I writing that book was a journey.
Yeah.
And when I started out, I said, all right, I'll write this book, but I don't have any interest in talking about my personal life.
Oh wow.
Okay, so yeah, so much for what I ended up writing. Huh? So I wrote the first draft as to, okay, these are the lessons I learned. These are the practices that helped me, and I only talked about my personal life where as examples. And then the people that came to me and asked me to write it, I said, all right, now take a look at it. Is this what you were looking for? And they were like, yeah, but it's that personal story that got me. So like, you need to go back to those examples and you need to talk about that. That has to be your story so powerful. You have to lead with that. So I'm like, oh, it's like, shit, do I really have to?
Yeah.
Really, do I have to? But I'm like, okay, all right. So I went back and rewrote it with, okay, here's my story. And here are the practices that I learned from it. So I went back to them and say, all right, now what do you think? So they came back again and they're like, this is really good. This is really good. This is what we were looking for. But now we want you to tell us how you felt.
Put it all out there. Put it all out
And
there.
I
For
was like,
everyone.
really? You're not satisfied with already me telling you my
Yeah.
story, but you want me to tell you how I felt when I lived it?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it would be so much more powerful. So I'm like, all right, so you want me to tell you how I felt when I was 8 years old and then went into the convent? And they're like, yes, yes. I'm like, are you shitting me? Really?
Yeah.
So I'm like at that moment, like mumbling, cursing, like,
Yeah.
really? And I'm like, so I put the book down. I said, I can't do this. I can't go back to that 8-year-old that was left in the convent with the nuns. I can't.
Yeah.
Because in order to even write the feelings, I would have to go
Feel
back
it.
to those moments and talk about these feelings. that's not that's not pleasant.
Yeah,
And they're
for
like,
sure.
so, and you're telling me that I need to go back to that funeral home and tell you how I felt,
Yeah,
in that funeral home with my husband when he died? Are you kidding me?
yeah.
So I postponed it for, I put it down. I said, not right now, not right now.
Wow.
And then one day I went back and I said, all right, I have to finish what I started. And if this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. And I tried one. I cried. I
Really?
cried. I
Wow.
could have flooded the place.
Really? Holy
Like,
hell.
yeah, I was like, so I'm
Wow.
like typing away, doing that whole thing, and I'm having a meltdown.
Wow.
The tissues, the whole thing going.
Wow.
And I handed it over to like, okay, here's one chapter. Take a look at it. If this is not what you're looking for, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done. And then they came back, all of them, and they're like, oh my God, Maria, this is it. This is
Yeah.
beautiful. This is powerful. You have
Awesome.
to. And so that's how it ended up. So each practice, to your point, it does have, the way I divided it is like, it has 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
And so each one of the lessons is more about, okay, here's my life. Here's how how I learned these lessons the hard way. And then I was like, okay, and here's the practical application.
Mm-hmm.
This is now, if you're going, this is the perspective to how it applies to you in a regular world.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, for each practice, I didn't want to go and say, Austin, I have all the answers. This is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
When the thing is about this book is all about going inward, is all about going within yourself. And what works for me and how do I personalize something is not how you're going to personalize it.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up bringing in the cows. And coming up with a creative concept. So that is 7 cows, is 7 practices,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked for the assistance for each one that would be. It's more about how does it help you make it your own. So because I didn't want to be preachy and say
Yeah.
this is how you do it. It's like I put it in there more with a creative concept that it transports you to a place in nature where you feel safe doing inner work, because inner work is not easy.
Yeah.
But this creates this positive environment where you're in a meadow where you have this nurturing, loving cow
Yeah.
that assists you, and each one of them has different attributes. And
Yeah, it's very unique, creative, very cool. So, was it therapeutic for you to write?
oh my goodness,
book? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
This it has helped me as much as it has been helping others. Just being able to organize my thoughts and get all those critical moments in my life and be able to dissect them and all of a sudden purge all that emotion and let go of it. Yeah, it's like I dropped 50 pounds of baggage. Like,
Yeah.
yes, this feels good. I'm feeling
Oh.
light. So it has been really good.
Yeah, I've been
Yes.
thinking about that a lot lately, is because I like to read, like, you know, self-help type books and stuff like that. Like, there's ones that I've read that I like, but I think that's an interesting concept as far as just going through. I feel like, and a lot of people don't do that, is going through whatever, trauma you've had in your life, and like letting that go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that's very important for people to do, because it's like, otherwise you're going to spend, your the rest of your life being miserable. So it's like, why would you not want to work through that and
Well,
move on?
for me, I have a technique. I call it brain dumping, and I close my eyes, I type, and I just whatever is in my head, I just let it go, and I don't worry about grammar. I don't worry about curse words or whatever emotion, or even if something happened with my laptop and I erased, it's just more like I close my eyes and just let it rip. And the moment you put something, and some people believe that you need to handwrite it. And for me, One, my handwriting is atrocious.
Really? No.
Like my brain works way faster than my hand does. So typing,
yeah.
I can keep up. Writing, absolutely not. It's like
Yeah.
it's chicken scratch for sure. But typing, I can type away really fast. So it captures all of my whatever's happening in my head.
Wow. So you do that a lot?
I do that every day.
Wow.
Yes. And what comes out of it is really powerful because it gives me a glimpse into what's really going on in my subconscious.
Yeah. Wow.
And sometimes it's pleasant. Sometimes it's dark. Sometimes it's things that I forgot that I needed to do and I haven't done.
Yeah.
But it has been one of the best things for me. So many things that I didn't even know were there have come up. But the trick is not to even pause, not to think. So you're like, even, as you're writing, if you have a blank state, I'll sometimes be like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. Why?
Really?
And, like, oh my God, why do I waste my time? And then, and all of a sudden, like, something really good comes out.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's
really
crazy.
Good.
I'm going to try that. That sounds crazy.
I even did some of the sections for the writing that way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I would just let it stream of consciousness, let it go.
Yeah.
All the feelings come in, and it will be like, okay, all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm scared about that. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do this. I never tried it before. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. What about if I fail? What about it? All of that starts coming in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I didn't know that was there. But
wow.
It's good that I know now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like the part of the book that I have read, you've been talking about just as far as a lot of the time people are just constantly like there's just constantly chatter going on in their heads and how that's something I've definitely like tried or am still try to do is like how you kind of like alleviate that or kind of like let that go. And I feel like when I'm not like that. Things are just like so much more relaxed and I can just kind of like float through life, Yeah. So,
well, I called that chatter the itty bitty shitty committee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. And for me, it's like the negative talk has been really destructive because when you have all these negative emotions and then that negative talk can take over and I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, or people hate me, or this and that, and it is very destructive. For me, it has been the rants in my head have been my worst enemy. And they have sabotaged me. They have propelled me into the abyss at times. They have frozen me and not allowed me to do stuff other times. So that negative chatter for me has been one of the worst things to conquer. So I dedicated a chapter to it.
That's awesome. I think that's something people could definitely benefit from. And if you can, like I said, it's been years ago that I've started paying attention to things like that, but it's amazing like how much once you start watching your thoughts and becoming aware of it, how much things pop up.
It does.
It's crazy. It's super crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
No, it's so powerful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't tame it, it can really run away with you.
Is there anybody that you really like as far as that's out there in kind of like that world, that type of realm? Like obviously like people like Tony Robbins are freaking huge, but there's so much out there now, and I think YouTube and things like that are a big part of it. There's so many people coming out there and connecting with different types of people. Is there anybody that you really connected with or liked as far as what you've read or listened to? Or
mainstream, I kind of like the stuff that is not, like some of it has been a little bit more commercialized. Yeah, and
well, there's a lot of it now. It's like people, because you make a lot of money. It's an industry that is potentially, very profitable.
Yeah, and so some of it is like, I can't say that I have one that's my go-to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like cherry pick here and there.
Yeah.
But more the people that have been more influential in my life have been real people.
Yeah.
Not so much in the social media or the most popular ones.
Mm.
It has been more the day-to-day individuals that have stories of survival
Yeah.
and that have conquered stuff that is not the ones that market it, but more the ones that live it.
Okay. That's cool. Hell yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I've been blessed that, I come across very neat people that just have come into my life and have helped me a lot.
Yeah. So, do you feel like now that you've been out of kind of like the corporate world for a while now, and you're kind of doing things that really resonate with you? I mean, how do you have a lot of people that maybe you used to work with, or
Mm-hmm.
do you see people trying to like get out of that type of lifestyle and do something that resonates more with them now, or
I have a lot of people that contact me and say, "Could we talk?
mm,
Could you give me your perspective? So it's interesting about what's next for me because I'm wondering if it will end up being something to help people who are stuck, doing work that is not fulfilling.
yeah,
And
that's
because
huge
it
and a
is,
lot of people.
it is. I'm getting a lot of phone calls and people looking for guidance in that.
Yeah.
Because one thing is like, okay, your personal life or all of those things, but
Mm,
another thing is here's your career or you're doing work that, hey, it pays the bills, but at the end of the day, you walk home and you feel totally
miserable.
trapped and drained and unfulfilled.
Mm,
So, how do you do that? How do you fix that? So, that might be my next thing.
yeah, that's awesome. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. How do you see, how would you see that? Like, you talking about like speaking type things, or traveling to different places, like speaking events, or like through social media or
I
personal
think
like
it's a little
coaching?
bit of all of the above.
Yeah.
Because today is like, I don't know that one thing alone
Yeah.
can do it. And especially if what energizes me is the inspirational and the motivational piece. If
Mm-hmm.
I can make a difference in the life of people, then that's what feeds me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how do you touch people's lives? People come your way in many different ways, different channels. So I'm open to whatever happens. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm still exploring it.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what doors open.
Yeah. That's
But I'm
awesome.
open to the public speaking, to the one-on-one, to the workshops, to like big forums, small forums. It just depends. It's more
Yeah.
about all right, how and and also relying on people to that who seek me. How do they want to get in touch with me?
Yeah.
And it seems to be more through uh, the public speaking and the phone calls.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. Like personal coaching too. Like people want
Yeah, for
personalized
perspective.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That there's the broader appeal that is
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, tell me about you, tell me your story,
Mm-hmm.
tell me, how maybe I can learn from you. But then the day-to-day application, they prefer the one-on-one.
Hmm. Where do you see, you know, where do you see like when you were working in the corporate world in that type of environment? Um, do you see that continuing, or do you see that kind of coming to an end? Like that's not resonating with people. Like I know you said your son works for Amazon,
He
right?
does.
So are your children, are they kind of happy in their environment that they're working in, or do you see, like just personally, do you think people want to move towards things that resonate with them more, or I don't know, because it's like you said, you go to other countries and you see these people who have nothing and they're fucking like totally happy, and then you
Yeah,
come here and it's like most people are fucking miserable,
yeah.
and they're just looking for the next thing they can buy to
To a piece.
yeah, to just at
Yeah,
least make their life fucking bearable.
yeah. To a piece, whatever is going inside.
Yeah.
What I think is that is more as a culture, especially here in the United States, we're
Mm-hmm.
so into the consumerism, and
Mm-hmm.
we're so into okay, what other people are doing, and comparing ourselves to it, and we live in a society that we measure ourselves to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I got caught in all that. And for sure, it's like, okay, how do you dress? What car do you drive? Where do you live? What do you look like? And for me, is a little bit more about, even as a culture, how do we start adjusting that we start feeling more comfortable owning who we really are? Because even social media, you see, and what do you see? It's all smoke and mirrors, okay? Because everybody's putting out there a vision or a picture of themselves that is not really the real one.
Yeah.
So how do we transition to a point that we really own who we are, we're comfortable with it, and then we build around a life around it that brings and taps into that,
your passion or
whatever gives you meaning,
yeah.
and gives you and makes you feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
Okay, because what happens is that, you could have all these jobs, you could be making a lot of money, but if that money is just is going to buy the next thing, or to appease that emptiness that you have in your heart and your soul, you're not gonna feel fulfilled. So you could be making whatever figures you want to make, but inside, if your life is not meaningful, well, you're gonna be looking to sedate it with either screen time, with drugs, with other stuff that leads you into other things that are destructive. So it becomes this really negative cycle. And how do you break that cycle? So it's bigger than the workplace. It's more about who we are and how do we go about our personal lives. And at the core is who we are. So we try to say, and each generation, and right now there's a lot of generations in the workforce, and each generation sees themselves different and shows up at work different. But ultimately, it comes back to the individual and who you are. And until we stop and we pause and we do self-awareness and we get ourselves in check, all of that stuff is just external. And for me, you can look for a job to make you happy, but a job is never going to make you happy. You can look for a relationship to make you happy, but unless you're happy with yourself, that relationship or the next one is not going to work. So it all comes back to the individual. So that's for me is like where I think we need to, all of us, we need to do our work.
Focus on yourself and getting yourself healthy and mentally right. And do you watch Netflix?
I do.
So there's a new documentary that I watched last night. It's called, I think it's called like American Meme. And it follows like Paris Hilton, I don't know, some other like social media people, like 4 or 5 social media. It's so interesting because it's like, oh my, it's kind of sad because these people are like, they're addicted to this attention that they get and these likes that they get through like, it's so interesting, but it's like, I don't know. It's like sad. I don't know.
It
it's
ruins
just
their
sad.
life.
Yeah. But they're like stuck in this cycle of like trying to get, I guess, I don't know, fulfillment from, thousands of tens of thousands, millions of people that don't. It's so bizarre. It's super weird.
And you wonder, it's like, all right, what's really happening inside?
Yeah, it's
that
sad.
They have that need. And and until they do that, they're going to be caught in that circle. That they're going to be continuing to, okay, how do I get the likes? Because they're going to be their personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
And unless they find ways that gives them that satisfaction and feeds that hunger inside, they're going to chase their tail.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good.
But it's so hard too because like for young people, now a lot of young people, they can, that's like a huge area that that's where you pretty much go industry to make money, is doing something that has to do with, being involved in the online world. So it's like, how do you do that in a healthy way? Yeah. I think that's the key for people.
In a healthy way for you and in a healthy way for others.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna be touching the lives of so many people, you need to be a force for good.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna be just, adding more of that
craziness.
Then what are you doing? You're just feeding the beast.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should watch. It's called American Meme. It's super interesting, but it's that thing. It's like me watching it, I'm like looking at these people. I'm like, how do they not, or how is there nobody around them that is like, at least says, hey, I don't know. Fuck.
There has
it's
to be
just,
a better
it's
way.
bizarre. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
bizarre, and it's.
But how empty that life
Yeah,
must
it is.
be.
Well, that's why Paris Hilton and this. She's like
Wow.
talking about how she travels, 200 and something days a year, and how lonely her life is. But then she's posting these pictures every day and going to these meet and greets with people, and it's sad. It's very, I don't know, it's sad.
And the meets and greets probably don't mean anything to
Yeah.
her because it's just more about, okay, getting that right picture in the snapshot.
Yeah. So I know you said, because you were going to get back more into social media because, obviously you have a book coming out. Have you begun to get like more engaged in that, or?
So the social media for me has been really a tough one.
Yeah.
And because I went into I'm very private.
Yeah.
And here now I have to, in order to get the book out there and even to help others, I need to be involved in social media. So that has been uncharted territory for me, and I'm still figuring it out. So here I'm like, all right, I don't like it. It's almost counterintuitive for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, how much do you put out there? Finding that right balance of, okay, this is me personally versus, okay, how does it help others? So I've been trying to push stuff that is more inspirational, stuff that is not putting my life as like, oh, this great life. Is more about, all right, these are the lessons I have learned, and or even putting little quotes from the book.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been managing it more, or either marketing events about where I'm going to be at, and or okay, words of wisdom.
Yeah.
But not so much, okay, here I have it
Vlogging
together.
your daily life.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Not
no.
into that.
I'll include some personal stuff. Okay, here's my Christmas tree, or here that type of stuff, but not my personal life with my parents or other stuff. I have not.
That's good.
Yeah, I have not.
That's cool.
It's sort of like you have to find your own boundaries and things like that.
Yeah. Cool. So I know you said, speaking of your parents, they're coming out here for the holidays. And
They are.
So they went back to Spain, though?
My parents retired, went back to Spain many years ago.
Yeah.
And now they come in for the holidays. Every year they spend time with me and
cool.
a couple of months with me.
Do they like it out here?
They love Arizona.
Yeah?
They love Arizona.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it is. So they, but they, for them to come from Spain they usually get to New Jersey and then to here. So they stay in New Jersey a couple of days. So I go pick them up, bring them here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So next week.
Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any, I know you just got back from a bunch of traveling, but do you have any big travel plans in the future, or any places that you would like to go to? The last guy I had in here, he just got back from Japan, so we're talking about that a little bit. I want to go there so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big trips. I want to go to Egypt.
Really?
I want to go to Egypt. It's definitely on my list. I want to do that. I want to go to South Africa.
Okay, awesome, yeah.
I love Asia.
Yeah?
Love Asia. And so I know a trip to Japan is in my future.
Yeah.
And Iceland is also on my list, and I don't know exactly why, but it's there.
Really?
Yeah.
Iceland, yeah, that's interesting.
So that one. So those four, I think, somewhere are my next travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, hell yeah. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me. And
thank you for having me.
Is there anything crazy going on you want to talk about, or
anything crazy?
Yeah.
There's always something craziness.
Yeah, I know.
I have an art expo this weekend, so I have that.
This is on Amazon, right?
It is. It's on Amazon and also on Smashwords.
What is it?
Smashwords.
Smashwords. Okay.
Yeah, it's another website where you could get. It's more for readers.
Okay.
So people that love.
Can you download it like electronically, or is it on?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. You don't. As like the Kindle version and stuff is available. So all of it is on Amazon.
Sweet. Alrighty. Yes. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Beautiful. All right.
Okay.
Adios.
Okay. Bye.
See ya.